Let's look at the text in Mark chapter 1. Just read for you just a few verses beginning in verse 9. It came to pass in those days that Jesus came from Nazareth of Galilee and was baptized by John in the Jordan. And immediately, coming up from the water, he saw the heavens parting and the Spirit descending upon him like a dove. And then a voice came from heaven, and I want to really focus on that voice from heaven. Voice came from heaven, "You are my beloved Son, and whom I am well pleased." This is kind of an aside, but I find this stuff pretty fascinating because I like the contextual literature of the Gospels. Mark is probably the New Testament's first book. He begins to assemble the story of Jesus. Don't look at the Gospels, by the way, as biographies of Jesus. They are not written in biographical form like we write in the Western world. In the Western world, we give someone's backstory, their birth, their upraising, their life, their career, then their death, and then their effect on the planet. That's not the Gospels. The Gospels are not the bio of Jesus. If so, two of them fail miserably because they don't even give you his genealogy. And John didn't even bother to tell you when he was born. He takes you way back before his earthly birth. And so they don't fit as bios, but they do fit as descriptions of a man named Jesus and what he means to the Old Testament narrative and what that means in a New Testament world. So look at the Gospels as almost this gap filler between the message of the Old Testament and the epistle message of the New Testament. So here comes the Pauls, Peters, Johns, Jameses of the world writing to the church of their day, but really to us as well, saying, here's what we have. The Old Testament is, of course, the journey, the story getting us there. And then there's this moment where God moves into the human family in the body of Jesus, and all of these remarkable things begin to happen. Mark is the first one to really begin to pen that. He's the first gospel to explode onto the scene. His gospel is fragmented at first. It gets built slowly over the first decade or so of church history. Mark doesn't bother with a teaching Jesus. He doesn't bother with a talking Jesus. He really focuses on an action Jesus. Mark's Jesus is almost frenetic. He's moving at a breakneck speed. Mark uses the word immediately 40 times in his gospel. 8 times in the first chapter. Out of the gate, it's immediately. It's like he can't wait to tell you the next thing that happens in the ministry of Jesus. He's so excited, he doesn't even slow down to teach. It's just, and then he went here, and then he said this, and then he did this, and then immediately this happened. And so you got to really, if you read Mark, this is kind of a fun challenge. Read the book of Mark in one setting, 16 chapters. It's not too tough, and the chapters are relatively short. The story is paced really quick, so you won't drag, you won't get lost. By about chapter 4, though, you're exhausted. I mean, it is tiring because it's just full speed ahead. And one of the cool things about reading it that way is that if you'll read it and then be really honest with the Jesus that you're being presented, you'll see that the Jesus Mark presents is considered by the people around him to be almost crazy, like almost psychotic. He's moving, he's rushing in and out. He's abandoning who's my mother and my brother and whoever, I hate the phrase this wild-eyed Jesus, but that's almost what Mark presents to you. And then there's these moments, and Mark's out of the gate pretty quick, so they immediately start. We just read one. But there's this moment right here at the top where it's as if the Holy Spirit, as this frenetic pace is about to begin, tries to give you that brief little moment that the other Gospels will pick up on, in which the character of Jesus is really birthed. His identity is really fleshed out. That moment as he comes up out of the water and you hear, "This is my beloved Son, and whom I am well pleased." Or actually, as Mark phrases it, "You are my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." And that's important because the Matthew 3 version, I want you to stack these two up. Matthew 3 says, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." Mark 1 says, "You are my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." And I don't think God said it twice. Once for the crowd, once for Jesus. I think the point the Gospels are making, if you marry those two stories, is that when God speaks at large, He has the amazing ability, and this is a New Testament thing. You don't see this in the Old Testament. When God speaks at large, He has an amazing ability to also speak pointed. And so while it is, "This is my beloved Son," what Jesus hears is, "You are my beloved Son." So it's why you can sit in a room like this with this many people, or 20,000 times this many people, and hear a blanket word that is definitely from God, from the Word, and it hits all of these other people, but they may as well not be there because it just hit you as if God said it out loud to you. That starts happening with Jesus. And that's a feature that you need to remember about the New Testament. God speaks to Moses in the Old Testament. He's not talking to Jedediah at the bottom of the hill. You know, He's talking to Moses. But when God speaks over that crowd, He's talking to the crowd and to Jesus. When God speaks in the church, He's talking to your neighbor and to you. And it puts this level of importance on you that can't be overstated. That you are so important to the Father that when we work out of this book that's been around for a long, long time, you're individualized in it. And when we lose that, then all we have is a corporate participatory Christianity, in which we are a part of a bigger scheme, and we come in and all of us together are a mighty army, but you're not really an individual. You're just a part of this sort of corporate thing that we're trying to build in our city. And man, we've all exhausted on that, because that's us building someone else's dream rather than us being built up by the role of the Holy Spirit in us. So I think one of the fascinating things in the very beginning is that the crowd gets ministered to, but Jesus gets ministered to individually, and the Father is still doing that in us. And